Inside Out 1 is my favorite movie of all time. So when the second one was announced, I was kind of worried about it, especially given their, well, let's just say, not so good films that have come over the past couple of years.
Lightyear!
I knew I had to get tickets for it though, given the sheer impact that the first one had on my life. And I'm not gonna lie, when I walked into that theater, I was a little nervous that it would be another flop, but it almost beat the first one in my eyes. It's nice to see that Pixar finally got its act together, though, especially given their history over the past couple of years with middling success from movies like Turning Red and Luca, which, by the way, I do not think are bad movies in any way, shape, or form. However, Inside Out 2 pleasantly surprised me, especially in the way in which that most Pixar sequels have been very hit or miss. But Inside Out 2 hits it out of the park, and it really shows a return to some creativity from one of the greatest animation studios of all time. The animation is solid, it's definitely an upgrade from the original, and it feels a lot more rendered and a lot more crisp. The plot's extremely realistic given the natural progression of the storyline that came out of the first, and the depiction of anxiety and how it can take over our mind during that period in our lifetime. Anxiety is a highlight.
What? What?
Okay. To be clear, anxiety is a highlight of the movie as a character, not as an actual thing. Anxiety is nerve-wracking and it sucks, but it can also be beneficial at times. The movie does a good job, though, at showing how anxiety is not a villain in itself, but rather something that can help motivate us when we need to do specific things really well done. And it especially shows this at the end of the movie. The OG characters are as solid as they can ever be. Amy Poehler, once again, hits it out of the park as Joy. You have Phyllis Smith as Sadness again, which Sadness does take a bit of a back role in this movie, but that's mostly because of the lesson that needed to be learned. The first one is about Sadness, and Sadness takes prime character mode in terms of the first movie. But the second movie isn't about Sadness, it's more about, well, Riley. Riley takes most of the center stage in the second movie, and she really comes into her own as a character in this movie. To me, Inside Out 2 is a perfect sequel. Now, to clarify, a perfect sequel does not mean a perfect movie. No movie can be perfect. There are just too many working parts that have to come together in order to make a movie, let alone make a good movie. Plot, the characters, themes, cinematography, lighting, production design, music, sound effects, etc. I could go on and on for days. So, when a movie is made, it's kind of difficult for it to hit all of those out of the ballpark at the same time. It's almost impossible, and the only movie that I can think of that can come close to it is Shawshank Redemption. However, the criteria for a perfect sequel is a lot easier to hit if the movie makers are willing to go the extra mile and link all these things together. All credit for the criteria that I'm about to list out goes out to Shea Frillis Productions. He's a YouTuber, does a lot of animation videos and reviews. Highly recommend you go see him. I love him. He's kind of hilarious. I will leave a link in the description. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Inside Out 2, just letting you know right now, there will be spoilers in this portion of the video. Criteria 1. Expanding the universe. You need new things in a sequel to keep the audience engaged in a story that, without new things, will just seem like a continuation of the old story. Inside Out 2 hits this out of the ballpark with new characters like Anxiety, with Ennui bringing some comedic elements to it, with Envy being kind of the co-captain of the new emotion team, kind of being Anxiety's lackey a little bit, and then you have Embarrassment, who has his own little side plot with Sadness during most of the movie. And then you have new places like the Vault, and the Stream of Consciousness, and the Belief System. All of these new things combine to create and continue the story in a new way that interests the audience. So Inside Out 2 hits this criteria on the head. Criteria 2. Continue the story in a natural way. A sequel is unnecessary if its story isn't a natural continuation of the first. For example, Cars 2 is seen as a terrible sequel because its story has pretty much no connection to the first. Plus, Mater works more as a side character than the main one. Inside Out 2 also hits this criteria because of the natural progression of Riley's mind between the first and second movies. Of course she starts having beliefs. It's a part of growing up to find our identity. Of course anxiety takes over because that's what happens to almost everyone during that period of an individual life. Criteria 3. expand upon the themes of the original, or create new themes based on top of the original. A sequel needs to either take a different look at a theme of the original, Toy Story 2 takes the themes of friendship and expands them to make a richer experience, or make new themes that link to the original. Inside Out 2 takes the original themes and expands them in a natural way that mixes well with the plot. The first one is about being okay with negative emotions, i.e. sadness is good sometimes. And that theme sticks around in the second with Joy expressing that these new emotions can be good. But the second takes a different approach by showing that no emotion should choose who we are. Anxiety shouldn't make us someone we're not, and joy shouldn't keep our mistakes from shaping who we are. So Inside Out 2 has hit 3 for 4, but does it hit all 4 criteria?
Yeah!
Criteria 4. Leaving an impact on the franchise. This is the criteria that changes a great sequel to a perfect sequel. The other 3 are much easier to hit, but this is the tricky one. A perfect sequel has to change the trajectory of the franchise going forward in an undeniable way. The best example most people can come up with is Empire Strikes Back. The twist that comes from Empire is arguably the most impactful twist in movie history. Everything in Star Wars is changed after this. Without the sequel to A New Hope, George Lucas has no reason to make the prequels. The whole point of the prequels is to show how Anakin Skywalker fell to Darth Vader. Without Empire, those movies aren't made. Inside Out 2 completes the set by changing how the emotions will be utilized in the entire franchise going forward. And it's all due to Riley coming into her own as a character. Riley develops a sense of self, which is treated by the emotions and the movie as a physical representation of who Riley is. At first, Joy is picking and choosing what memories to use to make Riley's beliefs, and it does work for a while, until anxiety shows up. Anxiety starts doing the exact same thing that Joy was doing, picking and choosing beliefs to make a new sense of self for Riley, but the anxiety-made sense of self causes Riley to believe that she isn't good enough, and it ends up causing Riley to have a panic attack. Joy figures out that we can't let our emotions pick and choose memories to make into beliefs. This is the core of the movie. Riley has to be able to choose for herself through all of her memories, both positive ones and mistakes she's made, and shape them into what type of a person she is and what her choices will be, which is something that everyone has to do at some point in their life to be a cohesive adult. Riley also develops a new ability to be able to call out for her emotions in her own head in an extremely beautiful scene with Joy that made me tear up almost immediately. This movie also keeps its ability to make my eyes turn into rivers thanks to emotional payoffs. Damn you, Pixar. From this point forward, Riley will be her own character and be able to make her own decisions and her own choices based off of her own sense of self. This is what changes and leaves an impact on the entire franchise. Riley has become her own. That's what makes Inside Out 2 close to the first one for me. It expands the universe, continues the story, expands upon the themes of the original in a new way, and it leaves a deep impact on the rest of the franchise. Also, this movie is freaking hilarious. From the preschool character, which, not gonna lie, I felt very called out on, I love Bluey, and the video game character, to the comedic development of anger, fear, and disgust, who all had fantastic performances of their own despite fear and disgust, both losing their OG voice actors from the first. Liza Lapira nails the fashionista of disgust, and Tony Hale breathes worry out of fear, which I loved. Overall, I give the movie 0 anxiety attacks and 10 out of 10 in my own belief system. Thanks for listening. Please let me know what you thought. I always appreciate feedback and new ideas for movies that I might not have seen before. So feel free to subscribe, like the video below, and yeah, send me some movie requests. Cheese Fry out!